What is up, everybody? It is Irish Benjamin coming at you with the Week 3 College Football Top 25 Pick'em. I run through the top 25 and pick every single game and who I think wins the game. There are very few score predictions, I will say that. I am going off of ESPN's rankings because I'm using their scoreboard. It is the easiest scoreboard to manipulate and manage when it comes to the top 25. So if you disagree with the rankings, it is ESPN's, not mine. So let's get into it. We are going to start off with the top dog, pun totally intended, with the Georgia Bulldogs. Number one, Georgia travels to Columbia, South Carolina to take on the Gamecocks. Easy victory for Georgia. Much of the same from last year happens this year. Georgia, to me, is the only team that looks not vulnerable at the moment. There is no vulnerability with Georgia. They have not taken a step back since winning the championship over Alabama last year. Speaking of Alabama, we're moving to number 2 as University of Louisiana Monroe travels to Tuscaloosa to take on the Crimson Tide. High Tide in Tuscaloosa. Alabama will have no problem against ULM, the Warhawks, and they will continue that incredible streak against unranked opponents with a victory, a huge victory nonetheless, against Monroe. Going to the Midwest, University of Toledo takes on the University of Ohio State in Columbus. Ohio State has never, as a football program, lost to an in-state opponent. Fun fact, it doesn't continue or ever happen, or it doesn't happen, doesn't happen this Saturday as they roll easily against Toledo. Going a little further up north towards their most hated rival, University of UConn travels to Ann Arbor to take on number 4 Michigan. UConn is actually a very big surprise this year. They've really raised some eyebrows with what's going on in that program, but they are not good enough to take down Michigan. Michigan continues to roll. Moving on to number 5, Louisiana Tech travels to Death Valley as they take on Clemson. Clemson has no problem with the Bulldogs of Louisiana Tech. They roll easily. A classic Big 8 matchup is renewed. Thank goodness. I have missed this matchup. It's going to be one that I tune into. It's a very interesting storyline. As number 6, Oklahoma travels to Lincoln to take on unranked Nebraska. As everybody knows, Nebraska just fired their head coach, Scott Frost, who was an absolute stud at Nebraska back in the day. I think Nebraska makes this competitive, but Oklahoma takes care of business and continues their hot streak. Moving on to number 7, going out west. Down in Southern California, University of Fresno State takes on Southern Cal. It's a battle of 2 California teams. Fresno State doesn't get the upset this year, I'm sorry. USC rolls easily as Lincoln Riley has that program totally on the up and up. Moving on, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff takes on Oklahoma State. This is a super easy victory for Oklahoma State. Not much needs to be said there. They roll super, super easy. Youngstown State out of Ohio takes on the University of Kentucky, number 9 Kentucky. Kentucky has no problem building off that momentum of them beating Florida in the Swamp last week. No problem with them. They get the victory. Missouri State travels to Fayetteville to take on number 10 Arkansas. Yes, Missouri State is an FCS team. Yes, if you don't know, they are competing for a national championship this year at the FCS level, but that's just not enough. Arkansas, in my opinion, is the 3rd best team in the SEC. They roll very, very easily. Moving on to number 11, Michigan State travels to the Pacific Northwest to take on the University of Washington, the Huskies. The Spartans have no problem with the Huskies of Washington. They roll super easy. Another very, very intriguing matchup. Number 12, Brigham Young travels to Eugene, Oregon to take on the Ducks, the Fighting Ducks of Oregon. This will be very interesting. I think Brigham Young comes out with the victory, but Oregon gives them a little bit of a scare. So you heard it here first. Number 13, Miami takes on Texas A&M in College Station. This is my big upset of the week. I think A&M gets back in the win column. They're angry about that loss they had last week to App State. They beat the number 13 Hurricanes and get back in that win column and get some momentum back. Moving on to number 14, San Diego State takes on number 14 Utah, the Utes of Utah. Utah doesn't have much of an issue with San Diego State, as San Diego State's kind of in a downward trend these days, and they win very, very easily. Akron travels to Knoxville to take on number 15 Tennessee. Here's looking at you, BVD, of BVD TV. And the Volunteers of Tennessee win this one very, very easily. Moving on to number 16, Texas Tech takes on number 16 NC State in Raleigh, North Carolina. NC State has no issue with Texas Tech. I think it'll be a closer game than most people think, but NC State gets the victory. Staying with some Texas teams, number 17 Baylor is visited by Texas State in Waco. They have no issue whatsoever against the Texas State Bobcats. Baylor rolls super, super easy. Going a little bit further over east, we travel to Florida. The University of South Florida takes on the Florida Gators in Gainesville, number 18 Florida. They get back in the win column and they roll super easy, or death roll, if you will, against USF. Going down to number 19, moving up the coast a little bit, Liberty takes on number 19 Wake Forest at Wake Forest. Wake Forest has a close game with Liberty. Liberty is a decent team, but Wake Forest comes away with that victory. Number 20 Ole Miss travels to Atlanta to take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. The Yellow Jack swarm is not enough for the Ole Miss Rebels, and Ole Miss rolls pretty darn easily. University of Texas, San Antonio, or UTSA, the Roadrunners, travel to Austin to take on the Longhorns. The Longhorns lost a heartbreaker to the Alabama Crimson Tide last week, and they take out some anger and revenge on the Roadrunners. I won't say it's going to be an easy victory, but they roll against UTSA. Moving on down to number 22, Penn State. They travel to Auburn to take on the Auburn Tigers. This one is my almost upset. Auburn will be rocking. They're tired of hearing about Penn State. I think it'll be really, really close, but Penn State escapes with a victory. And there is that. Number 23, Pittsburgh travels to Western Michigan. They get back in the win column as well, and they beat Western Michigan. And that ends this top 25. We're skipping 24 and 25 because they have already been mentioned in A&M and Oregon with earlier matchups against higher-ranked opponents. So that's the top 25 weekly pick'em. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you dislike. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Who is your upset? And don't forget, please don't forget, hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm. And hit the subscribe button, please, and thank you. And hit the bell icon so you never miss a video when it drops. That is greatly appreciated. I appreciate everybody that comes to this channel. As always, have a great day. God bless, and go Irish.